Hi, welcome back to my video, and in this video I'm going to be unboxing a book that is from a smaller form of Mormonism called Reformed Mormonism. After I unbox it, I'll explain what Reformed Mormonism is, and hopefully I can unbox this without needing a tool because I forgot to grab my tool over in my desk. So, hopefully this works. Oh, it looks like it is. One. Looks like I'm going to have to rip the place apart. There we go. Get into it. That's the invoice. Here's the front cover. It's got the Reformed Mormonism logo, and it says Doctrine and Covenants. So what this is the Reformed Mormon version of Doctrine and Covenants. It says the Mormon Community Reform, meaning Reformed Mormonism. And then on the spine it says Doctrine and Covenants. It has Reformed Mormon logo, and then it says Mormon Community Reform. There's nothing on the back. There is no ISBN number there, but there might be inside. Here's the front cover. This is also available as a Kindle, by the way. Or at least it was when I ordered this. There's the title page. Published in 2025. This is the second edition. The first edition, I think, was only available as a Kindle. Alright, it's got the email address and the website address, so I'll touch on that at the end, okay? It's got a table of contents, and I'll read that now. Read parts of it anyway. Introduction, Doctrine and Covenants, a historical overview, an introduction to Reformed Mormonism, an overview of Doctrine and Covenants, and then it goes into doctrine, and it says like Doctrine 1, Doctrine 2, Doctrine 3, so it's almost laid out like a systematic theology as far as the table of contents. Alright, here's the rest of the table of contents. Let's see. So Doctrines 1 through 13 are pages 23 through 51, and in Covenants, these are the covenants, so Doctrine and Covenants, are pages 53 through 103. Then pseudepigrapha, which is a fancy word that means written in the name of. The vision of Moses, the redemption of Adam and Eve, the prophecy of Enoch, the covenant of Noah, Melchizedek, the vision of Abraham. And then there are the declarations of Reformed Mormonism, where it goes into Reformed Mormon theology a little more. And then there are appendices. And the appendices that are listed here, I'll read them. Gatherings within the Mormon Community, Reform, meaning Reformed Mormonism. Conversion, a personal experience. The Sabbath, a practical guide. Parental blessings, the naming and blessing of newborns. Baptism. Marriage sealings, child and parent sealings, the sealings of siblings, consecration oil, administering to the sick, dedicating graves, and then starting on page 188 is the reference, which I think is probably like a we'll see what it is. Oh, it's like source. It tells you where the sources for things are, what they are. Okay. Let's see, what do I want to talk about? I'll show you the inside after the introduction. But here's an overview of Doctrine and Covenants. It's a single column, it's got titles and subheadings. Subheadings are in this larger font, and then you got the body of the text. Let's see. You got the 7 affirmations of Reformed Mormonism, and as you can see, they're numbered kind of like how verses are numbered in a Bible, but instead of being verses, they're at the affirmation numbers. And then here it's got like verse numbers once you're into Doctrine Section 1, Faith, so you can easily reference things. I do want to go back to the table of contents, and I want to find page 15. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll read a little bit of it and comment on it a little bit. First, before I go into quoting from this and commenting on it, my understanding of Reformed Mormonism is it's like how I'll describe it is like we took the best parts of Buddhism, Judaism, and Mormonism, and you mixed all that together, you have Reformed Mormonism. That's my short version of it. Unlike Christianity or other religions where you have to go through an initiation rite to become to become a Christian or whatever, in Reformed Mormonism, it is you read through what they believe, and if it resonates with you, you can just choose to be a Reformed Mormon. You don't have to go through an initiation process, which I think is great because that helps separate it from every other kind of philosophy or religion or organization. I hope it stays that way. And like I said, there's the affirmations and all that. Basically, everything you need to know, the minimum of what you need to know about Reformed Mormonism, is in this book. But there is a website, and I'll put that in the description below from this book. I'll read this first paragraph on an introduction to Reformed Mormonism, and then I might read a couple more paragraphs and comment on them too. The Mormon Community Reform, also known as Reformed Mormonism, has no connection to the LDS Church, Community Christ, or any other denomination tracing its origins to the early Mormon movement. Established in 2002, it is a distinct denomination with no interest in reforming other denominations or religious institutions. Instead, it has reformed its approach to the Mormon faith much the way Reformed Judaism has reformed its approach to the Jewish faith. I shall read the next paragraph because that was kind of short. Reformed Mormonism embraces the evolving nature of religious faith and the superiority of its ethical aspects to its organizational and ceremonial ones. I'll stop there. What I understand it to be saying, and how I've always understood it when a version of that was on the website, and I think that still is on the website, their version of it on the website anyway, is that unlike other parts of Mormonism or other movements that have come along to try and reform their particular thing, like with Protestantism being an attempt at reforming the Catholic Church, and Mormonism originally trying to be an idea of a restoration back to the early church. Reformed Mormonism, instead of trying to do what those groups did or other religious groups did, instead it's reforming itself to be more understandable and applicable of its ideas and principles to the person following that particular path. Unlike other religions and philosophies and stuff that become more complex over time, the Mormon Community Reform or Reformed Mormonism is trying to simplify things and keep it as simple as possible. And then there's some other stuff that hopefully I'll get to in a minute. Here's two more paragraphs I'll read and then make some comments on. Reformed Mormonism is committed to preserving Mormonism as a distinct religious tradition without sacrificing objective, critical scholarship and modern innovations. In other words, they'll make use of what the latest archaeology and latest, most recent discoveries as far as what the ancient world was like, what evidence there is to support certain religious ideas, by using archaeology, anthropology, and other fields of science that shed light on the biblical world or scriptural world. We embrace diversity while asserting commonality. We're all Mormons, black, white, male, female, gay, straight, rich, poor, etc. We affirm our beliefs without rejecting those who doubt. In fact, those who doubt provide an important springboard for further exploration, an essential tenet of Reformed Mormonism. In other words, you can be a Reformed Mormon and you can doubt the basics of Reformed Mormonism, not in a negative way, but more of in a positive way of allowing yourself the opportunity of spiritual growth through doubting, which can happen. I mean, I'll do a quick side note of my own life. I was going through a period of doubting while my mom was dying of cancer in 2013, and ultimately that doubting led to a strengthening of my faith, not a destruction of it. So there is a kind of doubting that can exist that isn't necessarily deconstruction, but rather, I don't know what the word would be, but it wouldn't be deconstruction. Whatever that word would be, and I'm not very good at coming up with labels for philosophy or religion here. The closest thing I can think of is like when they were doing the work on fixing the Statue of Liberty. For a while there was all that scaffolding on the Statue of Liberty as they were working on the Statue of Liberty to keep it going and keep it preserved, rather than it being let's take it apart and there's no more statue. That's the closest analogy I can think of in my own life. I'm not saying that is what would be your life or anyone else's life that watches this video. I can only use my own life as an example. I'm going to read one last paragraph and then I'll go on to explaining more of my understanding of Reformed Mormonism. While the teachings and character of Christ play a central role in our faith and ethics, Reformed Mormons understand that Mormonism does not share Christianity's theological paradigm. Just as Christianity sprang from Judaism and evolved into an entirely new religion, we hold that Mormonism sprang from the early 19th century Christianity and evolved into sorry to the author who wrote this, I'm stumbling on my words. And evolved into an entirely new religion. Therefore, Reformed Mormons happily embrace the words Mormon, Mormons, and Mormonism as correctly and properly identifying us and our religion. I'm going to set this down a second and talk about that a minute. My understanding of that is, I'm going to start with that second paragraph and go back to the first one. The word Mormon, it's been a while since I've read through the LDS Doctrine and Covenants. I seem to remember there either being a section in there or in one of the books on the history of Mormonism where someone asked Joseph Smith what the word Mormon meant or what the name Mormon meant. And I seem to remember him replying that it meant more good. So if there are any LDS people watching this who remember where that quote comes from or what it was, please let me know in the comments below. Because I'm not remembering it off the top of my head, and I'm not sure if I have a concordance or index that would help me to look it up, because I'm not going to trust AI on Google to give me the correct information. I don't trust the AI. I think it's a good tool, but I don't trust it. Back to that first paragraph. I gotta go back to that page a second. About it being distinct from Christianity. If you look at, like it mentions Christianity eventually becoming a distinct thing from Judaism. Remember, it started as a sect, S-E-C-T, of Judaism. And starting around the time of the destruction of the temple, both Christians, by this time, it was starting to be mostly Gentiles, and Judaism were mutually deciding to split. Now, the final part of the split did not happen until the middle of the 2nd century, so sometime between 150 and 175 AD, somewhere in there. So they mutually split, and as the split happened, Christianity did keep quite a bit of Jewish stuff. Like if you go to a Catholic Mass or a mainline Christian worship service, both of which very much resemble what we know about Second Temple Jewish worship. It does resemble that somewhat. I mean, there are theological differences in some of the things happening, but some of the sections, the rituals involved are similar. But at the same time, Christianity became very distinct because, by the 4th century, the doctrine of the Trinity had pretty much been formalized, which made it very distinct from Judaism. Judaism is pure monotheism. There's one God, indivisible, no dividing God. Christianity, by about the 4th century, decides, well, yeah, there is one God, so that makes us monotheists, but that God is 3 persons. I think I did a video on the Trinity. If not, I need to do one. But the short version of the Trinity concept is you have one God, 3 persons, but don't take persons to mean a person like you and me. The word person back in the ancient world did not mean that. It meant more like an essence or aspect. So the Trinity, each person of the Trinity is an aspect or essence of that one God. They're distinct, yet one God. Distinct, within the one God, but yet one God. With distinct roles, as the New Testament and even the Book of Mormon describe. And even the Doctrine and Covenants of the LDS Church, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, I'm looking forward to reading through this and reviewing it. This will be much easier to read than trying to read on my Kindle, because for whatever reason I have an easier time remembering what I read with a paper book than I do with a Kindle. But a lot of what I think of Reformed Mormonism is, you don't necessarily, this is my opinion, hopefully Reformed Mormons will either agree with me or disagree with me on this. Hopefully they agree with me on is that you can either follow it as a religion or you can follow it as a philosophy. Much like Jediism. I need to do a video on Jediism too, because somewhere I have the scriptures to Jediism. 2 different types of Jediism. But yeah, I look forward to reading this. The person who designed this cover did a fantastic job. I think that looks awesome. Hopefully, if they ever do a 3rd edition, I'll put a little bit of a description, either of this book or of Reformed Mormonism on the back. Those are the only things I can think of to, based off just first impressions, that might make it better. Okay. I am going to, this list of, what do you call them? Links. I'm going to try and put as many of these links in the bottom of the video, because this will probably do a better job than I am of explaining Reformed Mormonism. I had previously made a video about Reformed Mormonism. I want to say in 2023, I think it was in 2023 that I made a video about Reformed Mormonism. But the problem is I made that video when I wasn't in a very good mental state because I had just moved to another state and town, and also I was trying to figure out what church I should be going to. So I wasn't mentally where I should have been to make a video like that. I feel like now that I'm all settled in, I'm in a better place mentally, not mental health, but my ability to focus on what I'm trying to say. Because I was trying to deal with, moving to another town and all this, and not really knowing anybody, not really knowing what church to go to. This looks like a really good book. I like the way it's laid out, and there are like title pages to different sections, it looks like. And the font is really nice. I don't know what font that is. I'd like to know what font that is, because I'd like to have a Bible in that font. I probably do have a Bible in a kind of similar font. I think it's really well laid out. Another thing that would be cool to have is a wider margin version. But initial impressions of this is it looks awesome. I'm looking forward to reading through it, cover to cover. So yeah, this is cool. Hopefully, eventually the Mormon Community Reform, aka Reform Mormonism, will put out a Book of Mormon in this style. Like use the public domain text of the Book of Mormon and do their own chapter and verse divisions. Instead of verses, I think they should do sentence numbers instead. And then have it be where their version of the Book of Mormon can add one or two more books to it to bring it more modern. So anyone who doesn't know anything about Mormonism, there are many forms of Mormonism, not just the Latter-day Saints that you typically run into, the missionaries you meet. Because there's the Community of Christ, which used to be known as the Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ, the Latter-day Saints. Then you have the FLDS, which are the fundamentalist polygamous groups, like the Jeff Warren's type stuff. And then there's other ones too. There's something like over 200 forms of Mormonism. This is one of them. And this is one that started in the 21st century. So yeah, look at the links in the description below. They should be able to give you a more accurate description than I'm able to do in this video. I hope everybody's having a wonderful week, and I'll see you in the next video.